first episode of Pateo TV, I will talk about the clock of Giza. And in order to do that, I will share my screen now. Hopefully everything is going well. Yes. Okay, I hope you see what I see too. Let me start by saying that, of course, Pateo TV is brought to you via ConsciousConsumerNetwork.tv, and I'm really happy that Pateo TV is one of the programs on this beautiful channel. The broadcast is every Thursday, at least if it's Thursday now when you're looking at it, between 7 and 8 p.m. GMT, so Greenwich Mean Time. If you have any questions for me before or after the show, you can always email me at johan@pateo.nl. Okay. What I'm going to talk about today is about the clock of Giza. And for people, when you have already been there in Egypt, near Cairo, there are beautiful pyramids and, of course, the Great Sphinx, and we'll talk about that. But there's much more to this this ancient mystery than meets the eye, so to say. So that's the subject of this broadcast. I've been there myself. This is an ancient picture, I would say. It's going back to 1994. I was there 1 year after my my honeymoon, and you see me here in front of the middle pyramid, the pyramid in the middle, and of course you see the Great Sphinx on the right hand side, and I'm walking here like an Egyptian. It was a pop song of the Bengals in those days. It was popular then. Most people in Egypt felt a little bit ridiculized by this song, but there's of course nothing. There's no harm meant here. It's just a funny way of walking. That's all. This is the top view from the Giza Plateau. You can clearly see in the right upper hand side the Great Pyramid, and then another almost as great pyramid in the middle, and then at the bottom left hand side there is a smaller pyramid. It's also quite big actually, and if you look really carefully, you see around the middle on the right hand side the top of the Great Sphinx. I will come back to this, but this is what you would see if you were in a helicopter above the Giza Plateau. And to the right hand side you see already the starting of the city of Cairo. And the clock of Giza has to do with this circle. I draw the circle here in red. Of course, the circle is not really there. You can only see it when you make a map and you start to calculate things, which we will do later on in this broadcast. But I'm already addressing this circle because that's really important. Next time I'll be there, I really want to walk this circle in order to somehow make it visible to everybody. So the lecture is all about the Giza Plateau. Sorry for the interruption here. You see here a very ancient picture where the Great Sphinx was still covered in sand, and it was later excavated and all the sand was removed. Maybe I can also address here my website. I went a little bit fast in the beginning, but my website is pateo.nl, and the Latin word pateo means no longer hidden. And my mission is to reveal everything that is kept hidden by the people who don't want us to really know what happened on this planet and actually what is still going on. Because, for instance, if you look at what happened yesterday in Paris, the so-called attack and the 12 people who died there, well, if you look at the details, then it becomes really clear that it was a false flag attack, and it had nothing to do with extreme Muslim people. It had everything to do, I think, with the Mossad, who really wants to create a lot of turmoil. So that has been said here. And of course, Pateo means no longer hidden. Also, these things, if you go to my website and you check the news of today, you will see a small article and my explanation of what really happened there. And NL doesn't mean Netherlands, as most people would assume. NL means natural logic. So I don't want to have anything to do with the legal fiction that's called the Netherlands. Of course, I am on the same soil as where the country is supposed to be resting, but well, I'm not going into that this day. But NL doesn't mean Netherlands; it means natural logic, because that's what I'm revealing with Pateo.nl. Okay, before we go into time, I'll first explain the essence of space. And space has 3 dimensions. We all know that: breadth, depth, and height. Some people talk about length, but that's of course the same as breadth, and that's the horizontal dimension in this figure. And each dimension can be positive and can be negative. If we have some point in the middle, in the 0 point, then we have on each axis of positive and negative values. Next, we go to time, and when we look at time, we can also see that there are also 3 dimensions. And that's what we talk about in this broadcast, because most people don't know the 3rd dimension. They only know the first 2, but the 3rd is perhaps the most important one to know. And when we look at the values, positive now means light and negative means dark. So each dimension of time has a dark side and a light side. And I'll start with the most easiest one, and then I will continue showing the other dimensions as well. But it's important to understand, I think, that time, just as space, has 3 dimensions. Some people talk about 4th dimension and 5th dimension. Well, I have no clue what that means. I really tried my best to understand it, but to me it's all fiction. And I'm not talking about fiction, I'm talking about facts here. Facts that can be scientifically proven. And maybe it's also good to, if you're not familiar with my work, I'm not saying that universities practice science, because that's not the case. Universities practice scientism, which is actually a belief system. So real science has nothing to do with what the universities are doing, and true spirituality has nothing to do with what religions are doing. So please don't get me wrong. I'm talking about true spirituality and about pure science. So here we see the 3 dimensions again, the dimensions of time. And the easiest dimension, the first dimension, which is also the smallest one, that's the daily time. And we all know, of course, what the daily time means. The second dimension is the yearly time. And that dimension is more than 365 times longer. And the third dimension is the longest of them all, because it's actually 26,000 times longer than the yearly time. And Plato, from ancient Greece, referred to this third dimension as the great year. So that is what we see here. The great year is the third dimension. I will explain each dimension one by one, so you get the bigger picture here. The daily time is, of course, something we all know, but probably you're not familiar with the 4 energies, or the 4 essences: earth, air, water, and fire. What you see here is that the cycle, the daily cycle, the cycle of daily time, is divided into these 4 energies. The earth energy is the energy of the morning. Then we have the fire energy, that's the energy of the afternoon. The water energy is the energy of the evening. And then the night energy is the energy, the air energy is the energy of the night. So those are the 4 energies. And when we look at this division, there is a light upper part and a darker lower part. And the upper part is the daytime. And the lower part, the dark part, is the night time. And in the middle of the day part, we find the midday. Midday is actually the middle of the day, while midnight is the middle of the night part. So that's the vertical axis. And the horizontal axis in this picture are the moments of sunrise and sunset. Yeah, after the sunrise, it is morning, and after the sunset, it is evening. And we also say fall. Sometimes we refer to the evening as the fall. The night falls, we say, because actually the sun is going under the horizon. And that's why it's fallen. It has fallen into the underworld, so to say. So this is the first dimension. It's very simple to understand, and I think everybody already knows it. And we are accustomed to it by dividing it into 2 times 12 hours. We have 12 hours ante meridian, which is Latin for before midday, and then we have 12 hours after that moment of midday, meridian, post meridian, PM. And we see the same energies here again. Morning is Earth, then we go with the round movement. We go round like this to fire to the afternoon, then to water to the evening, and then to night to the air energy. And the moment of 12 is very it's right in the middle. It's a 0 point. And that's why there is sometimes confusion between 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Because what is the hour after 11 a.m.? Is that 12 a.m. or 12 p.m.? Yeah, if you're not familiar with that, you can easily get confused. But of course, we agree to it that it is actually 12 p.m. after 11 a.m. Okay, let's continue. Now we go to the second dimension. The second dimension is the dimension of the yearly time. And again, we see that it's divided into 4 phases. The Earth phase is the spring phase. That's the first phase after the autumnal equinox. I'll come back to that later. Yeah, and in ancient times, the year always started in the month of March. March was the first month. And that's why December is actually the 10th month. December means 10, and so on. So the year starts, or the season starts with spring. Then we have summer, which is fire. Then we have autumn. And autumn is also called the fall. Again, again we see that the fall in American English is autumn, in English, so to say, in UK English. But it's the same season. And then we have winter. And winter is, of course, the air element. And also you see that there are many heavy storms, mostly in the winter time. So that's the season of wind, of air. While everything comes out of the earth, of the soil, in springtime. And in the summer, it's the most hottest period of the year. Maybe I should make it clear, I'm talking about the northern hemisphere, because that's where most people live. And that's also the most common way to look at time. But of course, it's different when you are at the southern hemisphere. Okay, and then we have autumn, and when the climate is not changing as it is lately so much, then normally autumn is the raining season, where most water comes down from heaven to earth. And here again we see a lighter and a darker part. The lighter part are the 2 seasons which are above. They are spring and summer, and the temperature is also higher there, while the temperature is lower in autumn and winter. That's the darker part. The horizontal line are the equinoxes, and equinox means literally, because it comes from Latin, equi means equal, and nox means night. So an equinox means equal nights. That means that the period of the night is equally as long as the period of day, meaning there is 12 hours light and 12 hours darkness on those 2 days in an annual sequence, in an annual cycle. So that means, equinox. Same nights. And before that, for instance, the vernal equinox, the nights are shorter and the days are longer. But after that, the days are shorter and the nights become longer. And the very opposite is true after and before the autumnal equinox. I hope I'm not confusing myself here, but I hope you get the picture here. Now we go to the solstices, and solstice means solar standing still of the sun. Sol is the Latin word for the sun, and stis means standing still. But the sun, of course, doesn't stand still. At least from our perspective, it's still coming up and it's still going down. Means the sun still rises and the sun still sets. But the bow on the heavenly arc, the bow in the sky, is increasing and decreasing all year long. After the autumnal equinox, when we look at this picture on the top, that's the smallest arc of the year, and after that it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until it's down. There we see the biggest arc of the year, and after that it becomes smaller again until it's the smallest. So that's also an annual cycle, and that moment of solstices is exactly 3 days, 3 natural days of 3 times 24 hours. So 3 nights in a row, the bow is either the longest or the shortest. And that happens twice a year. I will come back next presentation, next broadcast of Pateo TV, when I talk about astrotheology, and I will explain this much more because it has everything to do with Christmas. But that will come next week, same time, same station. So the solstices are the vertical axis and the equinoxes are the horizontal axis in this picture. But again, I don't think I've told anything new here. This is all basic understanding of our time, but it's, I think, important to understand the dynamics behind it. What most people don't know is that the seasons are not equally long in length. For instance, autumn and winter together are a whole week shorter than spring and summer together. Yeah, again, I'm talking about the northern hemisphere here. And on January 3 or sometimes 4, the distance between our home planets, which I call Terra, and our Father who art in heaven, which is the sun Helios, is the shortest of the year. And on the other side of the year, on July 3rd or 4th, when in the USA it's celebrated, Independence Day, then the distance is the longest. And now we can understand why the summers are much hotter on the southern hemisphere than in the northern hemisphere, because the distance is much closer between our home planet Terra and the source of warmth, the sun Helios. Let's continue. In a year time, our spaceship, so to say, our planet Terra, makes a circle around the star in the middle of our solar system, around Helios. And while our spaceship Terra is going round, we see, but that's from our perspective, that the sun Helios moves in front of the fixed stars behind the sun. And those fixed stars in a small bandwidth of 30 degrees, those stars are called the stars of the zodiac. And that zodiac is divided into 12 equal parts. And the parts have been given a name on the basis of the stars in that part. Yeah, our ancestors draw a kind of picture, and what they saw in that picture, that is the name they gave. For instance, when we look up in the right-hand side in this picture, we see some kind of long tail. And our ancestors thought it might have been a scorpion. So that's a scorpion with a long tail. And for instance, when we look one further down to the right-hand side, so under Scorpio to the right-hand side, we see something like a scale. So that's why our ancestors called it Libra, because that means a scale. And that's why all those stars, they were given a special name, and now we can easily refer to those stars by talking about their names. It's very important for us to know in front of which star sign the sun Helios is, because the energies travel with light. You can say the cosmic energies, they come from a certain direction, and when the light from the sun is also coming from the same direction, then those energies are brought to us. It's a kind of like energy train, and that energy train can only deliver the energies that are behind the sun at that moment. Yeah, it's a kind of energy package. And otherwise, if the light is not coming from that direction, that package is not delivered to us. So that's why it's very important for us to know from which direction the sunlight is coming, which constellation is behind the sun at each moment. Here we see the 12 constellations again, and now we see also the same order as we saw before in the yearly cycle, because it starts with Aries or Ram. That's the first sign of the 12. And then it goes clockwise all the way around to Pisces or fish. And those are the 12 signs of the zodiac. The first 3 belong to the season of spring. And in the middle of spring, we find the sign of Taurus or Bull. And that's, of course, an earth sign. And that's also the sign of the whole season, because spring is an earth season. Then we move on, Gemini, Cancer, and then we get Leo. And Leo, or the lion, is in the middle of the summer. And also the summer is, just like Leo, a fire sign, or a fire season. Then we go to Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio is in the middle of autumn. And autumn is a water season, just like Scorpio is a water sign. Then we have Sagittarius, or the Archman, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Aquarius is a water sign, just like the season of winter. Water is an air sign, and the season of winter is an air season as well. Again, I will come back to this next week when I talk about astrotheology, because actually this is the most basic scheme, most basic figure or picture of astrotheology. Every story about astrotheology is always relating to this diagram. Yeah, and now we see clearly the equinoxes and the solstices as the horizontal, as the vertical axis here. When we look for long to the stars, when it is a very bright night and we sit outside, then we can see that all the stars are actually traveling along the sky, just like the sun is doing and the moon is doing as well. But the stars travel in the same direction in the same way, except one. There's one star that doesn't travel because it's in the length, it's in the same direction as the axis, the rotational axis of our home planet. And that's why it's always at the same position right at the top of our home planet. And that the star is called the North Star. Actually, its name is Polaris. And that is at this moment the star exactly in the same line as the rotational axis. But about 13,000 years ago, that was not a star at all in that direction, because then the star Vega in the Lyra system was actually the North Pole star. So that North Pole star actually is going around. That means that our home planet makes a kind of wobble, and that wobble takes very long time. It takes about 26,000 years for a completion of that cycle. So it takes a long time. And that cycle is also called the precession of the equinoxes, because the equinoxes go around, but in the reversed order as in which the zodiac signs go around in the yearly cycle. So that's why it's called a precession and not a succession. And the equinoxes, the moment of equinox, the spring equinox, is going in the opposite direction. So it's a tumbling movement, and that tumbling movement, that's the third dimension of the time. It's called the Great Year by Plato. I think everybody should know, or hopefully knows, how to spot the star of Polaris, because when you look to the left-hand side, around the middle, you see the Big Dipper. And the Big Dipper looks like something that you can use to take soup out of a bowl. Yeah, I can also say it's a small pot with a handle. Those 7 stars of the Ursa Major, of the Big Bear. The last 2 of them, the 2 that are furthest away, if you continue that line and make it about 7 times longer, then you reach to the star of Polaris. And actually Polaris is at the tail of the smaller bear, the Ursa Minor. So they are connected. And again, all stars you see here are going round when you look in a bright sky to the bright night to the sky, except Polaris. Polaris is always at the same position. It looks like everything is rotating around that fixed point. So that's why it's the North Pole star. Yeah, so about now it's pointing towards Polaris, but 12,960 years ago, it was pointing in the opposite direction towards Vega. And a full cycle takes 25,920 years, which is 72 times 360. That means that every 72 years, this cycle proceeds 1 degree. And 72 is about the lifespan of a human being. So in an average lifetime, this is only 1 degree of difference, which is really small, and for most people far too small to notice. Only when you explain this to people, then they can understand what's really going on. So now it's pointing towards Polaris, the pole star, the current pole star. Then it will after a while, it will start to point in the direction of Al-Deramin, then to the star Deneb, then to Vega, and then it goes back to Alpha Draconis, which is a star that belongs to the star sign of Draco, of the dragon, and that star is also called Tuban. So those 5 stars are the pole stars, but at different moments in time. Yeah, again, at this moment it's Polaris, which is the current pole star. Here we see the same circle, but now from above, so to say. To the left-hand side, you see the Big Dipper again, and the line towards Polaris. And the Polaris, or the North Pole star, at this moment, is connected to the Ursa Minor, the smaller Dipper, so to say, and that has the star Kochab in this middle. And then it goes round, just like I said, Alderamin, Deneb, Vega, nearly at the opposite side, and then it comes back to the Tuban star. And Tuban is at the tail of the star sign Dragon, constellation of Draco, the dragon. So it's all about the dragon. And when you think of the books and the movie of Harry Potter, Draco Malfoy is also in the center of that story, but it's not really about him. So I think there's a lot more to say about this. Maybe I'll do that in another episode of Pateo TV. I'll explain everything which is in the Harry Potter film and also in the Lord of the Rings, for instance, because those are very important stories explaining us the dynamics of the stars. This is another image of the same precession of the equinoxes. Now we see that full cycle of nearly 26,000 years is divided into 12 equal parts. And each part lasts 2,160 years. And that period of 2,160 years is also called an eon, or some people call it an age. And in the year 2012, we transferred from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. We are now in the age of Aquarius, and later on I will come back to this. And that was a very important demarcation moment. It has everything to do, this third dimension of time, this great year, with another important star. You can actually say that our central star, the central star in our solar system, has a mother. I refer to Helios as our father who art in heaven, and I will explain that next week. But our father also has a mother. And his mother, he is actually dancing with his mother. And let me introduce you to his mother. You can say that's our grandmother up in the sky, which is the most brightest star we can perceive. I'll come back to that later, because first I will show that the precessional cycle is a result from the movement of the sun Helios. While we go round with our planets, the blue dot here, round Helios from this perspective in a counterclockwise movement, Helios itself goes round in a clockwise movement. And actually, both are not circles, both are screw movements. So it's more like a spiral. In this case, it's a spiral that's coming towards us. So Helios is going round and around and around. And a full circle, a full round, is 25,920 years. And that's why we see the stars going in the opposite direction, because in a yearly time, we see in the small circle up, we see the stars behind the sun Helios going round in a clockwise movement, because we go, in a counterclockwise movement, because we go counterclockwise round. But in the other dimension, it's the opposite. We see it in a clockwise movement. That's why it's opposite. And this is the dance partner of our sun, and that's the star Sirius. So actually, we are in a binary star system, but Sirius is very far away, and the influences are not really clear when she's that far away. Only when she's really close, then the influences are big. Later on, I will explain this. But also, Sirius makes the same kind of movement. Both make circles, and those circles are related to each other. Yeah, they are connected, energetically connected. And now we can understand what is so important about January 1, because, why does our calendar start at January 1? What is so important about it? Why doesn't it start at the spring equinox, which would have been much more logical? As in the ancient days, for instance, the Julian calendar was March the first month. So why did we skip to January 1? That has everything to do with Sirius, because on January 1, always on January 1, our home planet, the blue dot here, is exactly in between our Father who art in heaven, Helios, and our grandmother who is also in heaven, the star Sirius. That is so important about January 1, January the 1st. We are exactly in the middle. So we can say our current calendar is actually a Sirius year calendar. Yeah, and that energetical line between the black line here between Helios and Sirius is always there. It doesn't matter where they are, how far away, that line is always there, and the line always goes in the middle of the shape in the middle here. Yeah, now we draw two lines, and no matter where they are, this line is always going through this central point where the two lines, the dotted lines, meet. You can say that's where it's fixed. And the shape, of course, around that, that's the Vesica Piscis. Most people think that that is a symbol of Jesus. Well, I will explain next week that Helios is, in fact, impersonated by Jesus. Jesus is the personification of the central star in our solar system, which is Jesus. And the mother of Jesus, that is Sirius. So Maria is Sirius and Jesus is Helios. Or in ancient Egyptian mythology, I prefer to call ancient Egypt Kemet, but I will explain it later on too. It was personified as Horus and his mother Isis. So then Sirius was Isis and the son Helios was Horus. And it's also a mother-child relation, a son-mother relation, just like Jesus and Maria. So mother and son are dancing together. They are doing it together, so to say. And a lot of misunderstanding is about this. Also, I'll come back to that later. And the star Sirius is very important. Actually, it's not one star. As the Dogon people know, for many, many generations, it goes back to time immemorial, they know that it's not one star. They knew everything about the both other stars as well, Sirius B and Sirius C. They knew that Sirius B is passing in front of Sirius A every 50 years. It is something we only recently discovered when we invented the telescopes. And they also knew that the Sirius B was much, much smaller, but very heavy. We now call it a white dwarf. But that's what they knew already in their ancient stories. When we see those people, we from our Western perspective, think that they are very ignorant and they are primitive. But the knowledge they have about Sirius was very advanced, and only recently we came to the same understanding as they have for many, many centuries. And they also know there's a star in the middle called Sirius C, and they even have a name for it. Emaya, they call it, just like they call Sirius B Potolo. So it's it's very important, I think. And they go even further because they know the star Sirius C doesn't even give light. We cannot see it with our telescopes, but it has to be there. And they say that creatures who lived on a planet that was orbiting Sirius C, a planet which actually had two suns. So can you imagine that you are living there? It will hardly be dark anymore. Only when they are when the two stars are at the same time, which happens only once in 50 years, then there is a short period of darkness, and for the rest, it's full-time lightness. That's very remarkable. And that planet called Xilantia, Xilantia, I have to pronounce it correctly. Excuse me. The creatures who lived on that planet, they came to our planet. That's at least the stories the people tell us from where they live now in Mali. The Dogon people tell us. So why should we doubt that? Because they were very correct about these two stars, actually these three stars. So why should they make up this? And they say that there were people who looked a bit like fish people, and call them the dolphin people. And the dolphin people visited us. And actually, they say they created us. Well, that might be very well be true, but because the so-called evolution theory of Darwin is completely science fiction. There is nothing science about that. It's totally impossible that human beings naturally evolved out of ape beings, and many people can prove that. If you want, I can come back to that in another episode and explain it in full detail. So something happened here on this planet because we are not naturally evolved. And if you look closely at human beings, you can see that we not really belong to this planet either. We are visitors. That's why we behave so unnatural sometimes. They describe the people, the fish people or the dolphin people like this, a bit like mermaids or mermen. And when you look at the picture in the right hand upside, that's what is coming from Mesopotamia. And there also you see, strange beings, a bit humanoids, but they also have something like fish, either as a kind of coat on them or actually they are sort of fish. I don't know. But that's, I think it's very remarkable. So why would they make this up? Probably they were right. And to the left-hand side down, you see what we now can see with our telescope. Only when you are zooming in really close, you can see two different lights, a really big one and a smaller one. And that's the difference between Sirius A and Sirius B. Here we see the arc from Helios, the big arc, which is coming down. Excuse me, my telephone is ringing annoyingly. I should have put it off. Here you see a small part of the bigger circle that takes for a full completion nearly 26,000 years. And now you can see why January 3 and 1 is so important, because then it's pointing directly to Sirius. And on the winter solstices on December 21, our sun is directly, we are directly between the middle of that circle, and the sun Helios. Now we come to the four phases. On the internet, you can find YouTube videos of me explaining the clock of Giza. But those two first videos, I was not completely right about the four ages, so to say, because I thought it was the same ordering as in the yearly and in the daily cycle. So I thought it was earth, fire, water, and then air. But that's not correct, because then I assumed, okay, then we go directly from the Iron Age to the Golden Age. But of course, that is not the case. It was a little bit stupid of me to reach to that conclusion. But that was again because I thought it was similar to the first and the second dimension of time. But the third dimension is a bit different, because we go from iron, the Iron Age, which we have been in for long, for over 4,000 years. Then we go to the Bronze Age, when we go clockwise, continuing that circle. Then we arrive halfway in the Silver Age. And then when the two stars are closest together, then we arrive in the Golden Age. And the Golden Age takes about 8,000 years. And after that Golden Age, we go first to the Silver Age, then to the Bronze Age, and finally to the Iron Age. So that is the ordering. And that's the same ordering that we have at the Olympics. The number 1 is the gold, the number 2 is the silver, and the number 3 is the bronze. And the number 4 doesn't get a medal. So we see the same ordering here too. From bronze to silver to gold, that's the upwards going, and then downwards, gold, silver, bronze again. And we can also show it in a sine wave. That's what we see here. Yeah, we've just had the passage between Pisces and Aquarius. When you look at this figure to the bottom and then the right-hand side, you see 3 signs there, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. We just went from Pisces to Aquarius. That's the year to 2012. And before that, we were for about 4,000 years in that dark period. That means the aeons of Aries and Pisces. Then we continue. When we go back, we go to the Bronze Age. And actually, we see that we are now in Aquarius, and Aquarius is a Bronze Age, so we are now in the Bronze Age, and that means that we are rediscovering the knowledge that was present on this planet during the time of Sumer and ancient Egypt, which I call Kemet. So that very advanced knowledge, which was here for long, is now coming back to us. We think when we look at what the universities tell us and so on, that we have really advanced and they're really smart, but this is about consciousness. This is about understanding the whole of reality. And from that point of view, we are actually quite stupid, quite ignorant. And in ancient times, in Sumer and in ancient Egypt, Kemet, people were much more aware, much more conscious of the true meaning of life and how everything fits together and how everything is one, how everything is a whole. And that is what we are rediscovering now. And that is what I'm doing with Holy Science, showing the science of the whole, which we have completely forgotten during that dark period when we were at the dip of this sine wave. Yeah, and then we go further back to the Silver Age, which was the age or the area or the eon of Cancer. And then Leo was the last eon of the Golden Age. And the Golden Age started with Scorpio. So from Scorpio to Leo, that period is always the Golden Age. The eon of Scorpio until, including Libra and Virgo, until the eon of Leo. And I will show later on that the Great Sphinx has everything to do with that fourth part of the Golden Age, because the Leo is put into rock, into stone, and that's the Great Sphinx. The Great Sphinx is actually a reference to Leo, to the age or the aeon of Leo. But that lion, that huge stone lion, was not built during the previous Golden Age. I think it was built even before that. That means the Golden Age before the last Golden Age. And then we talk about 36,000 years before our current era. So about 39,000 years ago. That's I think the correct age of the Great Sphinx. Much older than most people assume. And of course also the pyramids, the Great Pyramid and other pyramids on the Giza Plateau were not built, as most people claim, during the time of ancient Egypt, of Kemet, but they were much older. Yeah, they are, I think, at least 13,000 years old. So we have to think re-examine our history and use real facts. This is what the facts I find when I base it on the cycle of the 26,000 years period, because I think you need a really high consciousness to create these kind of marvelous buildings. Yeah, later on we will see that there is a lot of very deep understanding, deep knowledge hidden in the Great Pyramid, and only a very advanced, very conscious civilization is able to create such a masterpiece. You cannot do that when you are in the Iron Age, like we were a long time ago. Then you only think of destruction, of conquering, and those silly things, so to say. Here we see the Great Pyramid. Again, it's a masterpiece. It's one of the 7 miracles of the world which is still standing. And its length, its breadth at the bottom, at the base, is 440 cubits. And cubit is an ancient unit of measurement used by the pyramid builders. And it's about 756 feet, or in meters 230. And when we look at the height, then we see that it's 280 cubits. That means the original height, because the top part, the capstone, is missing. But when we include the capstone, we reach the height of 280 cubits. And that's remarkable because, and of course, in meters it's 174. And to me, that's an important number. It's a meaningful number. And in feet, it's 481. So why is this so important, or why is this so remarkable? Well, when we add up the width and the lengths at the base of the pyramid and we divide it by the height, then we reach nearly pi. That's a very good approximation of pi, meaning 22 divided by 7. Yeah, it's not precisely pi, of course not, because it's not ever precisely pi. It's a transcendental number, or irrational number, some people call it. So there is no rhythm in the numbers, in the digits. So it's going on forever. But 22 divided by 7 is a very close approximation, a rather good approximation. Now let us look at the cubits in more detail. A cubit is, to be precise, in centimeters, 52.36. And why is that so important? Well, when we divide pi by 6, then we get exactly that number. And that number is, when we make it really precise, 52.35987755598, and so on. So to give it a round number, they used 52.36 centimeters, and I will explain later on that they actually knew the meter and also the centimeter for that. This means 100 meter. And they also knew pi, because they used pi as the measurement. They divided pi by 6, and that's why they used the cubit. And officially, Archimedes was the one who discovered pi. That means the ratio between the circumference of a circle and the diameter. But yeah, this surely proves that the builders of the pyramids knew this all along, many thousand years ago. And yeah, if you're not convinced yet, then maybe this will convince you, because this is the correct measurements of the missing capstone. And it is exactly 1 meter high. So this is a ultimate proof that the pyramid builders knew about the meter, because they used it. They made it exactly 1 meter high. This cannot be a coincidence. And the base is exactly 1.57 meters, which is half of pi. So yeah, that's very remarkable, I think. And that's of course why it's missing, because yeah, if this would somehow be revealed to the public, because I'm quite sure that it is somewhere, probably made of gold, then everybody would understand that the pyramid builders knew everything about the meter long before we decided that it was what that value of measurement was, that unit of measurement was. And maybe you're familiar with squaring the circle, which is also a mathematical, very important phenomenon. When we take the base of the Great Pyramid and we make a square out of that, that's the blue square you see, and we use the height of the Great Pyramid as the areas of the radius, of the circle. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. Then we find exactly that marvelous phenomenon of squaring the circle, because the red circle is made with the radius of the same height as the pyramid. So that's remarkable. Another thing which is remarkable is the ratio between the height of the Great Pyramid and the radius of our home planet, because that is almost the same ratio as the circumference at the base of the pyramid and the circumference at the equator of our home planet. And that ratio is about 1 to 43.5. It's about. And I think it's about because our home planet is growing. But it's also something for another lecture, for another broadcast. Now let us look at the chambers. There are 3 chambers. The king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and there is some kind of basement chamber. And when we look at our heads, our own heads, then we see that the pineal gland is exactly at the spot of the, am I saying this correct? Yeah, at the spot of the king's chamber. And the pituitary gland is exactly at the spot of the queen's chamber. And we have the third gland, which is the thyroid gland, and that is exactly at the spot of the so-called basement chamber. In another broadcast, I will go much deeper into this, because many people do not understand the truth about the chakras. The chakras, there's a lot of confusion about this, but the chakras are all endocrine glands. So these are the top 3 chakras. Here we see another picture of the Great Pyramid. Now we can see how the chambers are actually in the middle. But we also see more pyramids. Most people think there are only 3 pyramids, but there are actually more. I will show later on that there are 11 in total. So isn't that remarkable? Why did they make 11? And to me, the number of 11 is also very meaningful. Yeah, we divided our home planet in a kind of measurement system in horizontal and vertical lines, latitude and longitude. Yeah, it's not really important to understand all this. But when we look at the positioning of the gallery, let me go back here to the gallery. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. Yeah, the gallery is in between, so to say, the king's chamber and the queen's chamber. That's the big hall. It's going a little bit up. And that big hall is exactly, its positioning in the middle is exactly, when we make it into a number, 29.9792458. And that turns out to be exactly the speed of light in meters per second when we place the dots on a different spot. So is it a reference to the speed of light? Did the pyramid builders knew the speed of light? I think so. And we find that same number when we take the base pyramid, the base of the Great Pyramid here, that's the black square, and we draw a circle inside and a circle outside. And the difference between those circles is exactly the same number. This cannot be a coincidence to me. So it's again a reference to the speed of light. Here we see a side view of the Great Pyramid, and now we find phi, which is also a very remarkable number. Pi is remarkable, but phi is almost, or maybe even more remarkable. And that's the golden mean. So they knew about phi, they knew about pi, they knew about the speed of light, they knew about the exact measurement of our home planet, and so on. So can you still think that people from ancient Egypt, from Kemet, built it? I don't think so, because there is no proof at all that they knew all about this. Nothing. So the Great Pyramid and the others were just a legacy. When they came to live there, they were already there. But they did not build it because they had no knowledge. And not even the equipment to even add that to the story. So here we see the pyramids. It's an ancient picture. And in front you see 3 smaller pyramids. Yeah, the biggest pyramid, the Great Pyramid, is now in the back. Then the middle pyramid and the smaller, greater pyramid is now in front of us. And then 3 more in front of that. And when you look carefully to the right-hand side, you see also leftovers of other pyramids. So this is a side view. This is a top view. And this is a top view like we see it now. When we go to Google Maps, this is what we find. And you see, of course, the greater pyramids, the 3 ones. If you look carefully, you can also see the Sphinx in the middle on the right-hand side. And if you look more carefully, you can also see the smaller pyramids. This one is probably more clear. Yeah, you can at least see 3 smaller pyramids next to the big one in the up right-hand side, and 3 they are vertical, and the ones horizontal down, left-hand side down, near to the smaller pyramid. But there are 2 more, which you cannot see clearly here. But I've drawn them here because the middle pyramid also has a small pyramid, and the Great Pyramid in the northeast corner, in the right-hand side up, also has a small pyramid. So we have 3 pyramids, 3 bigger pyramids, 2 really big and 1 lesser big, 1, 2, 3. Then we have 4, 5, 6 near the Great Pyramid, 6, 7, 8 near the smaller Great Pyramid, 10 near the middle pyramid, and 11, which is a small one, near the Great Pyramid. So these are the 11 pyramids. What does it mean? Is there a meaning here? Let us look at the smaller pyramids and let us count them. When we go from west to east and from south to north, and we see first 3 pyramids, then we see 1, and then we see 4. Of course, I already did the dots, so you probably know what I'm heading at. It's pi. These are the 3 first digits of pi. So it's a kind of clue. They give us a clue, because the 2 smallest, do not have any function at all. I will show that later on. But the 2 times 3 others, they do have a meaning. But the smaller ones are added to give us this number, 3.14, meaning pi. And pi is, of course, a reference to a circle. So the clue is there is a hidden circle here. And that is the hidden circle. I already showed it in the beginning of this broadcast. And that circle touches the northeast corner of the Great Pyramid, also the northeast corner of the smaller pyramid next to it, and it touches the southwest corner of the small pyramid near the smaller Greater Pyramid, if you can follow what I'm saying. And also the Great Sphinx is sitting with his buttocks on top of that circle. So is that a coincidence? I don't think so. The heart of this circle is not exactly in the heart of the middle pyramid, and that also has a reason. Yeah, I will skip this. This is not important for this lecture. The Sphinx is also very remarkable, because the Sphinx is made out of one piece of stone. It's a monolith, and it has a gigantic weight, and its measurements are very impressive. So it's really important to understand this. It's a masterpiece of creation, and it also has very much meaning. Its location is not random, and of course the way it's made is not random either. Yeah, here you see the Great Sphinx on the right-hand side in the middle again, and the pyramids you see on this picture. I was criticized a lot by my discovery, because they say the circle that I drew was not a perfect circle, which is partly true, because not every map is exactly from the top. It's always an angle. So, but I'm 100% certain that this circle is there, because I use many different maps, and it's always almost easy to draw the circle. But it's not always fitting perfect, because sometimes the measurements are a bit distorted. So here you see the circle, the red circle, and now we draw the line which divides that circle into 2 halves, and that line goes exactly through the middle of the Great Pyramid, in the middle. So we see 1 half to the right-hand side and 1 half to the left-hand side up. And that point at the left-hand side down is a very important point. There is nothing, there is no pyramid or whatever, but that point is important, because when we take that point and we draw a line from that point to the tail of the Great Sphinx, then that line goes exactly through the middle of the smaller Greater Pyramid. So that is not a coincidence either. And that circle that line is also dividing the circle now in 1/3 and 2/3. So that's also a very remarkable line. And when we complete that, then we see a perfect triangle, dividing the circle into 3 equal parts, each of 1/3. And we can draw the opposite triangle as well. And then it touches the northeast corner of the Great Pyramid. And this is the seal of Solomon. And Solomon, I will explain that also in the next broadcast, has nothing to do with Judaism or with Israel or whatever. It has everything to do with holy science. It's the seal of the Sol and the Mon, sun and the moon. And that's why it's 6. So it's a 6-pointed star. And it is a very ancient, important symbol of the sun. So it divides the circle into 6 equal parts. So now we are getting closer to the clock, because the clock is now divided into equal parts. Leo is at the start, and that's the start of the last period of the Golden Age. So that's an important start, the last aeon of the Golden Age. And at the opposite, then we must find the ending of the Iron Age, meaning the start of the Bronze Age, which is the start of Aquarius. So then we have 2. Now we can also put the numbers on the clock, so to say. We already know the clock, but we have to know which time is which. Now let us look at the Great Sphinx, because that will help us to date this. The Great Sphinx is as a specific position on this great circle. And that position has everything to do with the relation of the three stars in the middle of the constellation of Orion. Because those three stars are, so to say, put on Earth by the pyramids. And that is the work of Robert Bauval. Probably you know this work. So he made it really clear that the three pyramids on the Giza Plateau, the three biggest ones, they are directly related to the three stars in the constellation of Orion. Now we have to look at the timing, because the timing is very important. And there are shafts. There are shafts coming out of the Queen's chamber and out of the King's chamber. And they point to certain stars. Yeah, for instance, the Queen chamber is pointing at the south side to Sirius. Sirius, which is in ancient Kemet, was referred to as Isis, and it is Maria in the Christian mythology. So the Queen is pointing to Sirius, the Queen's chamber, and the King's chamber is pointing to, actually, to the star that is represented by the pyramid itself. The Great Pyramid is representing Alnitak, and the King's chamber is via that shaft is also pointing to Alnitak. So it's pointing to itself. Can it be more clear? And then we go to the north side, and then they are pointing to two stars that are related to the precessional cycle. So it is very obvious that this pyramid, the shafts, they are helping us to tell us that it's all about the precessional cycle, because those stars are very meaningful in that great year time. And that great year time is caused by the dance of Sirius. The dance of our star, our central star in our in our solar system, Helios with Sirius. I think this is what I came up with. My research showed that this outlining was the year 2309 before our current era. Yeah, so about 4.3 thousand years ago. And when we take this time and put it on the clock, then everything starts to make sense. Because then the Sphinx is pointing to that period of time. That doesn't mean that the Great Pyramid, neither the Sphinx were built, because they were built many years before that. But it's a reference on the circle. So that reference is related to the shafts in the Great Pyramid. That's the year represented by the Sphinx, the position of the Sphinx on that circle. Here we see again the constellation of Orion. In ancient Egypt, in Kemet, it was referred to as Osiris. So this was Osiris, and Isis was his wife, or his life partner. They were connected. And the belt of Orion is actually pointing towards Isis or Sirius. And that's also something I will talk about next week. Now we look at the smaller three pyramids, and this is the work of Scott Creighton. And he showed that the horizontal positioning of those three stars means that the constellation of Orion, or Osiris, is actually horizontal. Vertical, meaning vertical, vertical. So the belt is horizontal. And the other positioning on the right-hand upper side, that means that Orion is horizontal because the belt is vertical. And that's what his marvelous work showed. So they're actually referring to a specific time. And that's why, because it is so important to know this, because the constellation of Orion is sometimes like this, horizontal, and then it goes up like this, vertical, and then it goes down again, horizontal again. And that's between this and this is 13,000 years. So that is all about the precessional cycle. And it's important to know whether the belt of Orion in the middle is like this or like this. Yeah, currently it's more like this. This is what it looked like about 11,000 years ago, when the constellation of Orion was rising above the horizon. And we saw that the three stars in the middle of the belt were almost at the same time appearing. So it rises vertical. That means the belt rises horizontal, but the constellation rises vertical. So, and when we take this clock, the timing of this clock, then we have to withdraw 8,640 years from the timing of the Sphinx, and then we arrive at about indeed 11,000 before our current era. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, this is the number we calculate, and this is the number that we know. So that is indeed the positioning. That's the correct positioning. When here the stars are horizontal, and that's exactly the way it is drawn, the way it is created on the Giza Plateau, horizontal belt. Now we continue to the present day, which means that we have to add nearly 13,000 years to it. That's where we are now. And it means that this is what we have to see, and that's indeed what we see. This is a recent picture of the rising of the constellation of Orion. And now we see that the belt is rising vertically. So that means the constellation of Orion is now horizontal, and the belt is rising vertical. And that is exactly what is created on the Giza Plateau. 3 stars being positioned vertical. So now we can put there the year 2012, and that is a very important year because that's the time when the golden age, the Iron Age finished, when it ended. Actually, the period between the Sphinx, the Great Sphinx, and that northeast corner of the Great Pyramid, that is the Iron Age period, and that is why it was created, to help us, remind us that we were in the we were in the Iron Age. So we were very ignorant, we were very not knowing. And here you see a full picture. Again, the Iron Age is from the Great Sphinx all the way to the northeast corner, a period of about 4,500 years. Now we have arrived in the Bronze Age, which is also about 4,500 years. Then we have a little bit over 2,000 years of Silver Age, and then finally we will arrive in the Golden Age. And then we will fully understand everything we've done before, and we fully understand the meaning of our life, and the meaning of the universe, and the meaning how everything works. And then we will descend again, because that's happened before and that will happen again. And finally we will arrive again in the Iron Age. And probably when we are next time in the Golden Age, we might think of something even more clever to remind the people in the Iron Age that they are in the Iron Age. So the message of the pyramid builders is, in 2012, the Bronze Age started, and the Iron Age, which is the most dark period, ended. And it was actually to help us understand that we should not worry about our world, that it's not going to an end, that there's no bad things going to happen. It will only become better. That means we will become more conscious gradually. And that's exactly what is happening now. More and more people become more conscious of what is going on. I've been talking about this many years, but it was not really easy to explain all this before 2012. But in the year 2012, many people became interested in it and were opening up for that. But when they saw nothing happen, they thought, oh, it's not true, so it's all nonsense. Well, actually, it's very true, but it takes a little bit more time than most people think. There's much more to share about this, but that's also for another broadcast. Also, the $1 bill is pointing directly to the year 2012. When you count the number, the layers, and you know the meaning of the Roman numerals under it, and you know the meaning of each layer, then there is only one conclusion, and that means 2012. So it's also counting down to 2012. And also Stonehenge. Also, I will come back to that later on. But also Stonehenge is pointing directly to 2012, but this time via numerals that come from Sumer, long time ago. So how this is all possible? It's very difficult to understand all this, but probably there is some consciousness at work here that helps us to understand the bigger picture. And I truly believe that consciousness is also supporting me and helping me to do my work. And I'm really happy that I can do that. I'm doing this full time. This is my only occupation. I'm not getting paid for it. I try to make a living as good as I can by selling my books and giving lectures. But I devoted my whole life since I was awake to this knowledge, to developing holy science, because I think we need a new science in the new age. In the new age, we need real science, not what New Age has been telling us, because that's full of nonsense. And I can also prove that we need true science based on facts, factual, and based on solid ground, on rock. And that science is to me holy science, and that is what I'm sharing via my broadcast. So thank you very much for watching this first broadcast of Pateo TV. I also want to thank the people from CCN for making this possible. I'm really grateful for this beautiful opportunity to share knowledge and to help people get enlightened about the true reality and our role in that. So thank you very much, CNN. CCN. Yeah, especially Biggie and Mel. Thank you very much for making this possible. And again, thank you very much for watching Pateo TV, and hope you'll tune in next time, same frequency.